Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Truth Defender podcast. We are coming to you from the greatest country in the world, the great state of Texas, deep in the heart of the Lone Star State, Dallas, Texas, to be more specific. If you guys aren't already a subscriber, please consider hitting that subscribe button as well as hitting that like button. That'll really help us out with the algorithms moving forward. Also, if you guys want to stay in the mix, please consider hitting that bell icon so you guys don't miss an episode in the future, whether we go live or we post our high strangeness episodes. If you guys are on the go, you want to check us out, you can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, as well as iHeartRadio and Amazon Music at Truth Defender Podcast. If you guys love what we do here on the show, please consider sharing the link with a friend, family member, or colleague. Maybe hold off on the people at work because they might not, kind of be up to date and stuff with all the stuff that we do here. If you guys have any questions for myself or our guests, as well as guest or topic recommendations, you guys can shoot us an email at thetruthDefender1776@gmail.com. Today's guest, we welcome back Mr. Charlie Robinson. We actually haven't had Mr. Robinson on for quite some time. I don't remember exactly how far back we've gone. I think it was, like before the elections, I want to say. I'd have to check and be sure. We'll have to ask him. But obviously, Charlie Robinson is the author of The Octopus Global Control. He's also the co-author of the #1 best-selling book, Controlled Demolition of the American Empire, written with Jeff Berwick from The Dollar Vigilante. And his latest book, Hippocrazy, Surviving in a World of Cultural Double Standards. He's also the host of the Macroaggressions podcast, which can be found on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Rofkin, YouTube, and Iconic, as well as the co-host of the widely popular Roundtable podcast, The Union of the Unwanted. Without further ado, Mr. Charlie Robinson, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, brother. I really appreciate you hopping back in. It's been a while, actually. So I was just trying to remember. I think the last time we spoke was like before the elections. I think
been.
That's what it was. But yeah, obviously, we've all gone to hell in a handbasket pretty quickly. Now, obviously, a lot of things were a little bit better, or maybe a lot better prior to the election. But it seems like we've been kind of racing to the bottom of the barrel as fast as we can. I don't know. I mean, maybe you can kind of give your perspective on how like the last couple of years have been for you and like what you've seen. But do you think we're going to be surviving to the next election? It doesn't seem like it. What do you think?
And I'll tell you, at the rate we're going, it really doesn't feel like it. But this has been the plan from the beginning. It's the Biden Build Back Better plan. And when you start talking about Build Back Better, you have to. The most important word is the back, because that implies that there was something there before that got destroyed, and now you have to build it back better. So we're in the destroying part right now. We're in that phase where they have to destroy the economy and your health and your savings account and the dollar and your 401k and your sanity and all that, and energy, production and all that. We have to destroy all that. And then in order to build back our technocratic communist paradise that they talk about, the Agenda 2030 World Economic Forum glossy sales pitch for communism. So this is we're in the destruction stage. And of course, like I said, you mentioned Berwick, and I wrote Controlled Demolition of the American Empire. That came out on election day, or that came out the Friday before election day. It became a #1 bestseller on election day, which we of course thought was hilarious because if you read the book, you'll never vote in another election in your life. So we found that ironic, but we were talking about, this is the plan. The plan is, in order to put this big eventually one world government into place, you have to destroy the biggest obstacle to it, which is the American empire. And so part of this controlled demolition has to do with destroying the dollar and destroying your humanity and destroying your body, the sovereignty of your body, and destroying your body itself. And when you do all that, then you can build back better on the ashes of this empire. And actually, to be fair, we weren't necessarily saying that the destruction of the American empire would be the worst thing in the world. I mean, there's some components of this empire that need to go away for
Right.
sure. But, we also sort of recognize that you can't take this down without a lot of collateral damage. And of course, we don't want that. And that's where we are. That's where we're facing. We're halfway through Biden. We've got 2 more years with this demented old pedophile. And then what? And then do we get whipsawed back into like the Republicans are going to save us,
Right.
because they can play that game too. But these are all just it's like a giant show, like a giant performative art piece that we're all sort of participating in, but it's just theater, you know. What's going on behind the scenes is what matters, and that's what people don't want to talk about.
One of the crazier things that I've noticed is what's with this whole I mean, I guess I kind of understand what the whole facade is, but like why can't they just admit that we're already in a recession? I mean,
I, yeah.
it's this whole thing baffles me. Like, we're just pretending like it's just not existing. I mean, I mean, we've noticed it somewhat here where I'm at in Texas. Obviously, in the bigger cities, you see a lot more of it. Other places, you see it big time. But like, gas has come down somewhat here in Texas because of policies that we have here. Whatever. But it's it just baffles me how much they play with it, like word wise, and just trying to like, no, we're not really in a recession. They even changed like the whole definition of it, and now
Yeah.
all of a sudden everybody's just like, oh well, we're almost in a recession. And I'm like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? We've been in a recession for like a year, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going on?
But it's also sort of like it's crazy, of course,
Yeah,
they won't admit what's right in front of our eyes. But that's actually kind of the theme of the
right.
Biden administration. Don't believe your eyes. Whatever you see, you're not seeing that. It's mostly peaceful protests. It's stand with Ukraine. It's Joe Biden is totally competent. It's all of these things. Don't inflation is transitory. There is no inflation. Gas price. This is the most healthy economy we've ever had. You know, it's just lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. And there's so many lies that of course they're going to change the definition of what a recession is. Of course they're going to lie and say we're not in a recession. They are lying about everything. Like if they started to tell the truth now, what's the point?
Right.
So the and part of this comes, I think, from the relationship that they have with the general public. You see, they have no respect for the general public at all, and they think that everybody is stupid, which is the reason why they tell these really obvious lies. It's why Sugar, as Steve Poikonen calls her, Sugar Bear, the press secretary. That's why she
Right.
can stand up there and just look into the audience and into the cameras and just lie her ass off about everything. Like even when there's video evidence to the contrary, they still just lie. It is a full buy-in, 100% commitment to living in the Truman Show, where it's true if we say it's true,
Right.
where reality is what we say reality is. And meanwhile, there's like a bunch of us that are like on the outside looking at this going, this is the craziest shit I've ever seen. Like to the point it's so fake that like they're not even in the White House filming.
Mm.
Biden's office is off in a soundstage somewhere, and everyone's like, "What the fuck is going on here? This is the weirdest." It feels like a movie set. It
Right.
makes you start to think that, like we know he's really not in charge, but like, is he even there? Is he CGI? Is he wearing a mask? Like, I hate to allow my little conspiratorial brain to go down that path, but like they're giving me a lot of opportunities to start feeling that something is amiss here. There's guys that don't look. There's Bidens that don't look exactly the same, and their ears and hairline and noses are different. And I like you guys are making it really hard on me to not put my hat on.
Mm.
And so, so it's just the look, if it wasn't so serious, it would be hysterical to watch this show.
Yeah.
and me as a writer, like, is just almost endless content. You can just find something funny in everything he does. But the problem is, like, this has like real world implications, and these maniacs are talking about, like, they're trying to like normalize the idea of tactical nuclear strikes on Russia. Like, this is legitimately crazy. And these people are talking about it like, do we do it next Thursday or the Thursday after that?
Right.
And this shit makes me insane because this always happens when they want to drum up support for some new war. They just give it to the media in this echo chamber, and they just start talking about it over and over and over again. And in the beginning, you go, "There's no way we would want any part of this crazy idea." And then 8 months later, you're like, there's so many people that are like, "Yeah, this isn't such a crazy idea after all." And it's like the media knows how to do that, and they're trying to normalize tactical nuclear weapon strikes like it's not a big deal. After, mind you, after making the biggest deal in the fucking world about a virus with a 99.98% survivability rate and a median death age of 80 years old. So that's a huge problem, but nuclear war is fine. And so you look at this and you just go, I feel like I'm on acid. I feel like this is like the craziest trip I've ever had in my life. And I'd like it to stop, please. Because these people are like, they're they're insane. They're talking about doing insane things. They're telling us that they want to do it. And we've got a huge segment of the population that's just like, yeah, let's nuke them fucking Russians. And you're
What are we
like
talking about here?
we're in trouble.
It's funny because, like, for a lot of people that have never been to war or don't understand what war is exactly, like, when we're talking about nuclear anything, bombs or weapons or anything like that, people think that we're just gonna like lob a couple back and forth here and there, and we're just gonna be fine because it's kind of off somewhere, like in another battlefield around the world. But like nuclear war, like there's no winner. Like even if we were to just out nuke Russia for whatever reason, like somehow, like there would be mass casualties. Obviously, Russia would be wiped off the map. They'd probably fire off a few in Ukraine, and they'd probably hit some like major cities here in the U.S. or whatever. Like it doesn't just end like we're gonna take them out with one of them and then it's just over. Like there's a whole aspect of back and forth that's gonna happen. A lot of people are gonna die, and then like what after that? What everybody doesn't like they don't understand like what comes next. And obviously, you speak about like the social media aspect of it. I go on Twitter most of the time and like with all these fucking people that have like Ukraine flags and their freaking Twitter handles and all kinds of stuff. And even if you just come up with any kind of rebuttal that's like mildly sane in any way, shape, or form, like, oh, I get it all the time. Like, oh, you're just another like fucking Russian bot, or like you're another like Russian apologist, or like you like Putin. And it's like, dude, it's not even like where does that even come from? Like, it's done on purpose, obviously, but like trying to be that like middle person trying to bring everybody back to the table of like sanity. You're just like another Russian, whatever. Like that, they just kind of dismiss you, and I see it all the time. It's baffling. Like I get it all the time, also. And they're like, "Well, you just in defense of Putin." I'm just like, "No, dude, I don't want us to blow this whole world up. We have to live here, obviously, but like, why can't it just be? I don't want anybody to go to war. Why is it all of a sudden if I say we shouldn't be sending money to Ukraine? Oh, this guy's a fucking Russian bot. It's like, what are you guys talking about? Like, what the hell? You know?
Yeah, I wonder about, like, what if our government did set off a nuclear device in Russia or used it against them in a war. I wonder what the American citizens' response to the government would be at that point. I think that would be a bridge too far for a lot of people. I think a lot of people would just be like, this government is illegitimate and we need to burn this thing to the ground. Because when you start talking about using nuclear weapons on some bullshit like this, and then you actually do it, I think they would lose control of a large segment of the population that would just become completely ungovernable, which would be great, but hopefully this doesn't happen. And I think that those people would create a real problem for this administration. Um, I think that they would. I mean, I think that would just be something that would be uh, unforgivable, like an unforgivable act. And the fact that they're even threatening it, talking about all this stuff makes me very uncomfortable. But of course, they haven't done anything and haven't used it. But if they did, that would be unforgivable. And I think that people would just become uh, like you want to talk about anti-government. I think there would be a large segment of the population that would just be like, we're not doing anything. We're not we're not going to work for you. We're not paying taxes. We're not participating. We're gonna be a big monkey wrench in your whole operation. We're done with this. You represent us and you go and nuke people. Are you out of your fucking mind? Like on our for us, on our behalf, some country has nothing to do with we get involved in that? No way. Absolutely not. But unfortunately, Paul, you and I both know there will also be a segment of the population, probably a fairly large one, that'd be like, yeah, that's right. We did it. Look at us. We're so great. USA flags in my bio.
I was just gonna say you probably give too many people a lot of credit because I'm kind of on that second part of that as well. As I mean, you had obviously like when the whole Vietnam War thing was happening, there was that group of people that were obviously against it, like a large group of people that were against the Vietnam War. There would have been a time, especially during that time, where I would agree that there used to be people like that that would have rebelled against the government and saying, "What the fuck are you guys doing? Why are you bombing?" and stuff like that, especially during nuclear war. But nowadays, I do not think that that would happen because it goes beyond just like a war and like nuking Russia. There would be a whole aspect of it as far as like they would blame it somehow on like, oh, well, Trump's friend Putin like did something and then that's why we had to attack. Like there would be like a whole like mental gymnastic part of it where they would just find a reason to make it great, especially like
Yeah.
in the news. And they would just be like, yeah, well, we had to, or like, because of Trump or because of the Republic.
Oh,
It
of
would just
course.
be
I mean,
it would be
it would
something,
be some lie for sure. But at its core, you would know that we would know, the people that were paying attention would know that they did it because they thought they could get away with it and because they are unhinged maniacs. I hope none of that happens. I hope all this stuff is just like we look back on this like the way we did the Cold War, where it's like, well, there was a lot of talk and people were really paranoid, but nothing wound up happening. I hope so. Maybe this is just to drum up more business for Lockheed Martin. And if that's the case, prefer that over this actually happening. But the problem is that like you don't know who you're dealing with. Like you see Joe Biden and he's making decisions and doing things, but who the fuck is he? Who is making the decisions for him? Trilateral Commission? Well, if that's the case, then we're definitely going to get a war because they're all a bunch of bankers. They're make money off of this thing. So that benefits them. So if they're running his operation, then we're going to be pushing for war the whole time. So that makes me uncomfortable. But then you just start to see these real obvious signs of our involvement, like blowing up that Putin's brains car, but
Oh yeah,
missing and getting his daughter.
yeah, yeah.
Then you blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. Then you blow up the bridge. Then you try to blow up the Turkmenistan pipeline.
It's
Like
so obvious too because didn't Biden say like we would stop production or whatever, like in like with the oil thing, and then all of a sudden, like a week later, the whole pipeline blows up.
he said, if Russia invades Ukraine, that means troops on the ground going into Ukraine. We will put a stop to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. You can count on that. And then the reporter said, "How do you plan to do it?" He said, "We know we will make it happen." And then Victoria Nuland goes on camera and says almost the exact same thing. It will not happen. If Russia invades Ukraine, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline will not happen. And then the CIA warns Germany a week before and says, we think this pipeline's going to get blown up. You guys might want to just kind of be aware of that. And then a week later, it blows up. And then the United States goes, Russia did it to itself. And the NPCs in America go, yes, the Russians blew up their own pipeline when they could have just turned it off when they had spent billions of dollars and 6 years building it. They it it doesn't make any sense, of course. So like we're in a wild ass place where we are antagonizing Russia in a way that they're going to respond. And so you have to ask yourself, like, if we're doing these things, and we are, and we know that they're going to provoke an aggressive response, and it will, then we must be doing it on purpose in order to start a war, keep this stuff going. So the question is why? We are not on the side. We could put an end to this war tomorrow if we wanted to, but they sent Boris Johnson down to tell him you're not settling with the Russians back in like March or April. Things would have been all wrapped up back then. So we are prolonging this. So that makes me very nervous and like makes me think these people aren't trying to stop this. In fact, they're doing the exact opposite.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. I mean, obviously, Russia is one of the like the biggest countries almost out there. Obviously, China's out there and like us and stuff, but militarily, they're in the same realm, kind of. But when it comes to like money and like weapons and resources and all that stuff, they don't stack up. Obviously, the only reason that why they hold so much weight in the world is because they have more nukes than we do. If you were to kind of size up, like militarily and all that stuff, tanks and weapons and planes, all that kind of stuff, it doesn't stack up. But like, it's weird that, I mean, obviously the whole nuke thing plays a big part of it, but I mean, I think that he's obviously a real piece of shit. Like we've all known this for years, but I don't think that this whole thing was like just done by him on purpose. Like there was reasons why he had to jump in, obviously because NATO was like on the border and they're trying to, freaking bring Ukraine in. Ukraine, which everybody forgets, was voted like one of the most corrupt countries in the world in
Oh
2012.
yeah.
But everybody's just like, we'll just send them billions of dollars. Forget all these people that are like in the government trying to flee the country with millions of dollars. It's no big deal. We'll just send them even more. So like every week there's a new package of like
Right.
$1 billion, like 500 million dollars here and there. But like, I guess, did we just kind of take advantage at this point? Because I mean, I wouldn't say take advantage because obviously Biden doesn't even know he's alive right now. But like the people that are controlling him, I guess they just kind of felt that this was like the best time that they would have the best shot of doing this because Biden's in office and he doesn't even know where he's at. That they would go through Ukraine to try to stir some shit up. Obviously, you said because a lot of people make money when there's wars, and that's true on both sides. They sell weapons to the Russians, they sell weapons to the Ukrainians, and it just goes back and forth. So, I mean, I don't think there's a major play as far as trying to invade Russia, but are we trying to like collapse them as far as like monetarily, or like how do you think that whole thing kind of plays out?
I think the US is playing both sides of this. I think the US is trying to destabilize Russia and the EU at the
Yeah.
same time. I think America wants the EU to, because look, it's easy for us as part of NATO to say, cut off the gas supply, because we don't have the ramifications of that, but Europe does. So Europe's got to deal with that. The United States is trying to destabilize Russia with the sanctions, but they know that that's going to also have retaliatory effect from Russia back to the EU by cutting off their power. So it weakens European unions too. I don't think America trusts Europe. I don't think America. I think America looks at Europe and says, I still want to keep you sort of down beneath us. You're getting a little bit too big, and let's keep you down a little bit. This does that. in sort of a really diabolical kind of way where you pretend, you're part of NATO, and you pretend that we're all in this together, but you're kind of like convincing like Germany, like, yeah, yeah, let's cut the power. We got to put sanctions, and it's going to result in them cutting the power. It, and yet you're pushing for it anyway. So it's like, are you incompetent, or are you so devious that you're also simultaneously trying to weaken Germany because you're threatened by Germany? Everyone's threatened by Germany a little bit. Like nobody really fully trusts it because Germany gets built up so well and so quickly, and they're so dominant, and they have all this great geography for everything, and everyone's got to keep an eye on Germany. I think the U.S. looks at Germany like we're a nation in decline for sure, but we want to make sure everyone else is declining as well so that we stay at the top of the pile. So this is the way these maniacs think. I know it sounds crazy, obviously, but that's how they think about this stuff. Like, well, how could we, simultaneously take Russia down while also, kind of throwing a monkey wrench in Germany's economy, keep that kind of blown up for a little bit.
Were they kind of like on the verge? I mean, I think 2019 or so, they were kind of in the works of building back their military and like bringing back like a European kind of union military. I, I think, I guess maybe that's trying to kind of squash that a little bit. I mean, obviously it started back in 2019, but I, I think they're just, like you said, getting a little too big for their own good. And, we're trying to cut them back down to size. But um, it's just odd. It's just like a whole crazy thing that's happening with like the pipelines, and was it like a false flag, and like obviously, like you said, did Russia do it to themselves? Which is, I don't believe that either. But I mean, there was reports of like Navy ships in the area at the time, naval submarines that were in the area at the time, like
Yeah.
spotted like a day after the whole thing happened. So it's like I don't put it past. Obviously, Vietnam happened because of stuff like that, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't put it past us. I mean, obviously, I was in the military and all that kind of thing. Kind of it hurts to say, but at the same
No.
time, I know the kind of bullshit that we pull, at the expense of people like other people that are enlisted and stuff. Obviously, their lives don't matter because they're just used as pawns to go fight in these wars to make more money. But um, I don't put it past at all. Like I'm open to everything, like all suggestions when it comes to this kind of stuff because I just know like the way we operate, especially overseas, it's completely ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a belief that I had this thought, and then after I had this thought, I wrote it I was responding to somebody's email, and I said, "Here's a scenario that I could see happening, and I think it would be really strategically smart." And it was in this scenario, I said, "Well, if you're Russia and you've got all this oil, right? You've got and then you've got the NATO countries all blocking you from delivering oil to them. What if you picked one country out of that NATO group that you knew was going to be the most vulnerable, that was going to be really dependent on oil and gas this winter, and you went to that country and you said, 'Listen, you guys are about to be fucked this winter because you're not allowed to buy our oil or gas. But I'll tell you what, we'll deal with you directly to provide you all the oil and gas that you need. It's just enough to keep your country going, not for you to like give to your NATO buddies. We're just going to sell to you, and we're not going to sell to anybody else, just you, and we're going to help you out.'" Um, what that would do would be to drive a wedge in between NATO and get all the other countries hating that country that said, "Sure, we need this. If we don't have oil and gas this winter, all our people are gonna freeze to death, or they're gonna come to the government building and come get us, and we'll be hanging. So like, yes, we'll do the deal. Fuck NATO, and break that just because they needed the natural resources and they didn't want to be in this war anyway. And I said, if that would be worth more to Putin than anything, right? To just drive a huge wedge in there. And I thought, well, who's the most vulnerable country? It has to be Germany, right? So Russia approaches Germany in my fictional scenario and says, listen, you guys are about to be screwed. You guys have people out in the woods cutting down trees, collecting wood for your wood burning stoves. I'm reading this in Zero Hedge, right? You guys are screwed and you know it. But we'll sell you our gas. We'll just do a deal between us, right? We'll just send it down the pipeline. And I think, and so I sent that off to this person I was talking to. And 2 days later, the pipeline blew up.
Yeah.
And I went, "Oh, holy shit. What if I was right?" Like, I'm speculating. I have no information. I have no intel or anything like that. I'm just
Right.
100% just thinking out loud about how that would be an idea. And then I start reading that the United States is paranoid that Germany is trying to back out of this Ukraine stuff. That
Right.
they think that they want out of Ukraine, and they think that Germany might be talking to Russia, and then the pipeline blows up. And I'm like, holy shit! I think I might be onto something here. Like, we America just boxed Germany in, so they can't do that deal anymore. If we blew the pipeline up, crippling Russia, but also boxing Germany in and eliminating that potential for them to break away, that's some 3D chess right there, And
It
I
is.
wouldn't put it past our dirty government scumbags to think about doing that. Like, Germany's about to break away. They're about to do a deal with Russia to get themselves some gas, and we need to take that. It's time to take that pipeline out now. Boom, and then it goes. And now Germany's like, fuck.
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously I wouldn't put anything past him. I mean, we even got these stories about how Biden was like begging and pleading with OPEC to not, I guess like right before the midterms happened, like the whole thing about the oil, not to like stop oil until after the freaking midterms and all kinds of stuff. And if they have instances like that where we know that's happening now because it's out there like in the news, what don't we know that they're trying to do
Exactly.
behind the scenes, and like it's just wild, man. Like, I don't know. I mean, now you have all these like other stories about like that whole hybrid COVID virus that they're trying to put together in
Right.
freaking Boston University. And it's like, what are we doing? Like, if it wasn't so, like you said, like so ridiculous, like it'd be hilarious. Like, this is like a plot, like in a movie.
I
Like,
know.
it's always like one thing after another, like something that's completely ridiculous happens. And then you're like, oh man, that's crazy. And then like, what if? And then like the next week you hear about something else that's even worse. And then it's like, well, we just came off of this huge pandemic, and like all these people were supposedly dying. It's like so infectious and stuff. And it's like the craziest thing that's ever happened to the world. But like, oh wait, like this university is trying to build something even worse. And like, it's just like, what are we doing here? If it's not done on purpose, it seems like it is, right? I mean, I'm not fucking losing my mind here, am I? That's what it feels like.
Yeah,
It's
man.
it's
It's
ridiculous.
it's a crazy time to be paying attention to, what's going on out there in the world. There's a lot of people I feel like they're sleepwalking through, but like this it reminds me of the George Carlin quote. When you're born in this world, you get a ticket to the circus. When you're born in America, you get a front row seat.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
where we are.
it's definitely a circus. It's crazy. I mean, so I mean that whole thing, obviously Russia and Ukraine's like a big problem, but like we also got things happening like China and freaking Taiwan. And you get Nancy Pelosi heading out there to make sure her investments are doing fine. Obviously, Nvidia and mostly all the chips that are like in our computers and stuff are built out there, like on that island that's like 80 and 90% of the world's chip processing and all that kind of stuff that goes in your computers is out there. Obviously, her and her husband had stock in the whole thing, and he sold it right afterwards, and all kinds of stuff, whatever, blah blah blah. But
Totally
like,
normal.
yeah, it's
You see
totally,
here.
yeah. So it's like, I mean, obviously that happens, we're screwed because there goes computers, there's chips in cars, there's chips in
Yeah.
everything that we do nowadays, and obviously, um, for a lot of people that like, I guess, play video games a lot, like they buying like the new PlayStations and stuff. Those things were like on back order for like months and months after they came out because there was no chips and phones and all kinds of stuff. So this thing kind of, I mean, not kind of, it affects everybody massively, obviously, but they even had those like kind of war games where they were firing missiles over the country at that time and stuff. But one of the crazier things, obviously, that I think we can all freaking agree on. I don't know if you heard about this. I'm sure you have, but where there was Chinese police stations in New York City. Have you heard about those?
Yeah. I
So
heard a little bit about it, but I didn't really dig too much into the details. What was the situation with it?
so what they claimed it was, and I don't know how they would even allow that to happen. Oh, it's freaking New York, so whatever. But they were claiming that they were Chinese police stations set up to spy on Chinese nationals, um, just like, I guess, spy on dissenters. Like the whole story was these people were like on IRS blacklists, so like they were trying to like keep an eye on them and see what they were doing and like how they were spending money and what they were doing, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, obviously, I feel like I think we can all agree that that's just kind of like a cover story, like a front story.
Yeah.
But the fact that there's even any kind of Chinese anything law enforcement in the U.S. is completely ridiculous. Obviously, there's like this whole freaking Muslim, I guess, patrol cars in New York City as well. Like they drive around, like they police their own stuff like that. That's crazy, like in and of itself. But for a country that we're supposed to be in competition with, as far as like economically, and like they steal our secrets all the time, and they do all kinds of stuff, like to have a Chinese police station in New York, despite who they're spying on or like who they're trying to keep tabs on. I feel like this is kind of like the initial like shot to try to make it take hold, and eventually there's going to be like even more and more. And this is, I think, it's only like one so far, but there could be a whole lot more moving forward. So that's just wild when I heard that shit. It's crazy.
Makes you feel like somebody got blackmailed into agreeing to allow a Chinese police precinct to be built in New York City. I mean,
Yeah.
I, because I'd like to understand the logic,
Well,
unless you're being sort of forced into doing it for some reason.
it's odd because it's not the only one. So like they said that, so this station is in Manhattan. That's where it's at. But they were saying that this is one of like 100 such offices that they have uh, around the world. So it's not just like here; they
I
have like
heard they
other
had them in
other countries.
Canada. I did know about that.
So it's weird. I mean, as much shit as we give China and like what we see on the news and like we're going back and forth and they're like our main opponent and all this and that, like they sure do own a lot of property here in the U.S. Especially they're buying up plots and like land next to military bases, which is completely ridiculous. Why the State Department and freaking Department of Justice would even allow that to happen in the first
I have
place?
no idea. That's crazy.
Especially like, so we always complain about how China comes in and they like steal our secrets and they beat us to it and this and that. Now you're letting them set up shop next to like military installations where there's like top secret stuff going on or like freaking day-to-day stuff. Just like, yeah, we need the money, come on in. It's like, what? I mean, let's not gloss over the fact that they own most of the toll fucking roads like all around the country. When you guys hop on a toll and you pay that dollar whatever for that exit, that goes to some fucking Chinese company, and because they own all those tolls, they own land, farmland, you know, not just Bill Gates, but they own major stakes here in the U.S. One day, I have no doubt soon that they're gonna freaking come to collect, and then what? It's weird.
They own a ton of stuff in Africa too.
Yeah,
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 and
yeah.
that's as I mean, It's it's a it's a gold mine for them, literally a gold mine in some cases. Um, for their involvement in Africa, they build hospitals for sick Africans, and America builds graveyards for dead ones.
Yep.
And so they like working with the Chinese better because the Chinese go into business with them, as opposed to the Americans who come in and like overthrow their government and then just do it that way. So the Chinese come over wanting, with a ton of money saying, well, we'll invest in your community, we'll invest in your country, but we want to work with you. And so that's where things are going. And now with this electric vehicle push that the Build Back Better morons and the Biden administration are pushing, we're getting to a point where you're going to have a resource battle for the rare earth elements that power these lithium batteries. And where they come from is mostly the Democratic Republic of Congo. So you've got to keep that in mind as well, because now China is partnering up, and China is actually where these, where 70% of the cobalt is found is in Democratic Republic of Congo. And then they do a deal with China to process it all. And you've got to have this rare earth metal called neodymium for the batteries, and China's got 90% of it. But the Biden administration is saying what we need to do right now is go 100% electric. And all of that material that you need is 90% controlled by China. So we can see that we're about to walk off a cliff. Like, if you understand how this is going to work, you understand that the Democratic Republic of Congo is about to get invaded, like in
Yeah.
the next 5 years. There'll be some regime change there. Take that to the proverbial bank. I don't wish that on them, obviously, but they're going to have to figure out how the game is played. And that is, if you've got an asset that the United States military covets, then just read John Perkins' book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And that's the book that woke me up to this whole thing. And that's how you see how global players actually operate.
It's wild. I mean, then that whole thing is going on. Obviously, the Build Back Better whatever plan isn't actually building back better. So it was kind of funny. Like, so one of the things I had seen previously, on obviously when like the first day that freaking Biden was in office, he did all of these like, so he kind of repealed everything that Trump had done as far as like executive orders, and he signed a whole shit ton of them. He was like sitting there, it was like on the news and stuff. One of the funnier ones that I had seen was like, so obviously he's, like you said before, they're tearing everything down to try and make it seem like they're helping in these areas, like, for the midterms. And as far as when it comes to like the elections in 2024, people have a short memory, or obviously they don't want to like remember a whole lot of things. But one of the things was when it came to like insulin. I remember how that whole story where Trump had lowered it to like $35 or whatever. And as soon as Biden came in, he canceled that and it went up like crazy. And now all of a sudden he's like putting in like this other bill saying that he wants to lower insulin back down to like $35 or whatever. And like this whole game, and I'm sure people weren't paying attention at the time when he scrapped that. But now he's making it seem like he was the one that brought that in and like it's his idea. But people don't remember, like they choose not to remember. And that's exactly what he's doing. He's recycling all this shit. When it comes to like the gas thing, I guarantee you, once the elections come back around in 2024, there's going to be some kind of bill or whatever, and gas is going to drop dramatically. And he's going to say, "Look what I did! Like I lowered gas, and it took us a while to get there, but we got there, and it was because of me." And everyone's going to be like, "Fuck yeah, we're going to reelect Biden and all this shit." And it's just going to be like things like that, real subtle. Like, obviously a lot of people aren't paying attention, but it's going to work, which is even more frustrating. It's going to work.
It'll start right after this election in the
Yeah.
next couple of weeks. Everything will just go back to instead of the artificially suppressing the gas price by draining the strategic reserves, you can just say, no, we're not doing that anymore. Let the prices go back up. Elections are over. We don't have to worry about this for 2 years. You guys are too stupid. You'll never remember this in 2 years. So that's what they think.
I mean, for the most part, it works because it's going to
Yeah,
happen that way.
that's
Like
that's the
everyone,
that's the worst part is that they're right to do that because it works.
everyone's gonna,
because
everyone's, yeah,
because most people will forget it. They'll forget that, and then he'll come in with some new act, and it's gonna fight for your rights and get these prices down, or get this gas down, or get those, all that shit. And they'll bring it back like as if they just had this brand new idea to do this.
yeah, it's all it
Without
is.
fail, you can count on it. It's so predictable that it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and one of the funnier ones is like we get this whole thing about electric cars, and like in California, like all electric cars are going to be banned by like 2030 or 35, I think it was. I don't remember which one exactly, but and then they come out like a couple weeks later saying that like don't charge your electric cars during this time because
Yeah.
there's blackouts and freaking brownouts and stuff. It's like how do you expect to like keep the grid? I mean, California has some of the oldest electrical grids like known to man. There's always like rolling brownouts and blackouts and all kinds of shit. Like, don't
Yep.
let's not forget the fact that they never have water, which is crazy. But like now all of a sudden you want to be like the tip of the spear when it comes to electric anything.
Yeah.
You guys can't even keep your power or your freaking air conditioner on. Like, where do they think it's gonna go? Or are they just thinking short term just to get reelected and then fuck everybody else in the future? They can deal with it
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, exactly. I listen. I'm allowed to speak about this because I lived in California for 35 years, so in Southern California. So look, these people are retarded. Okay, the people that are running California are running it into the ground. It is insane what they're doing. So the power grid so the power grid has always been a problem. It hasn't been upgraded in a while. um, they could have used some of this money to upgrade that, which they're going to need to, but instead they've squandered it on building electric charging stations, but then having a third of them not even work. So there's a big problem with the push to go electric because they're they're not thinking about this logically. The grid cannot support it unless, again, if we allow ourselves to be conspiratorial about it, maybe that's the plan. Get everybody onto electric cars, bust down the grid, and now nobody can go anywhere, and we sort of keep control over people. That's if you want to get like conspiratorial
Mhm.
devious, but just like the simplest explanation is they're just morons that haven't thought this out, because they talk about adding an electric car to the grid is like adding two air conditioning systems to your house, in terms of like that's the added price, that's the added energy that you're going to need to do. Well, two air conditioning systems is quite a bit, and you have to have every single house has to do that. Like, you're talking about just destroying the power grid, and already a very questionable grid. It's always been questionable. They've had rolling brownouts for, off and on for over like 20 years. They haven't had a ton, but it's always at the edge of giving way in like August every
Right.
year. So it's like you just want to shake them and just say, "Are you like? Have you thought about this at all?" Because you don't have to be too smart to understand that it's going to destroy the power grid. Are you prepared? Do you have another one? Well, no. So now what do we do?
Well, what happens is they all fucking come here to Texas, and I'm sorry for like a lot of people. I see a lot of them driving on the freeways out here, especially when I drive into Dallas. I don't live in Dallas anymore, like in the city like I used to. We used to live downtown. Now I'm in the suburbs out here. Like on the border of freaking civilization and the country. So I still have not too far to drive into the city, but like I'm far enough to where I don't have to deal with all the bullshit. But like when I head into the city on the weekends and stuff, and I see like California license plates everywhere, and I know everybody gives them shit all the time, like, oh yeah, they came from California, like don't California my Texas, but that shit is real. Like
Yeah.
the prices of houses have gone up dramatically here. When we were looking to purchase a new house, people are just coming from out of state and outbidding people by like $200,000 on houses, way above asking price. And the people that sell these houses know that that's going to happen. And they see people apply and would say like, "Oh, you guys are from California." They know that they're going to pay out the ass for it. Like they're going to ask for like $100,000 at least above asking price, and that it's going to get paid. But so all this shit's happening. Shit's getting more expensive out here, and like, I'm sorry, like for people that come here from California, like, I'm sorry, like you did that shit to yourself. You guys vote for all this bullshit that happens out there, and then you flee expecting it to be different, which it is, but then you still want to vote for the same bullshit when you come here.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of seeing fucking Beto signs everywhere out here. That dude's a piece of shit. I'm from El Paso. I know exactly who Beto is. Well, I wouldn't even call him Beto because he's not even really Mexican. So I know who Francis is. Like, know his family. I know where his dad was a fucking corrupt judge and his mom was fucking doing deals with the cartels and fucking Juarez and all that shit. Like, I know what the deal's about. It's a piece of shit. I know it for a fact. We know people that know people, like the family, all kind of stuff. The dude's the dude's full of shit, man. Like it angers me so much every time I hear this dude's name. Remember coming out of high school and seeing people that were going to college and like going to work for him in his fucking campaigns back in like 2005, 2006. And then isn't he married to like somebody important that has a lot of money? Like she's like a millionaire, like a billionaire or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember exactly, but like he's not who everybody thinks he is. Like only people that I know that say like, oh, we should vote for Beto and this and that, and they're from like New York and California or whatever. That's how I know that nobody should ever vote for him. When I see people from the outside saying that we should vote for him, turn tail, fucking head the other way. The dude is not. I'm sorry. It's just I just know because I know. Like I'm from El Paso. That's where I was born and raised, and I know what the dude's about. So it pisses me off because nobody else sees it. Like nobody else around me sees it, except for like my family and stuff like that are still there. Like they grew up there or whatever. But we know, so it's really
That's the
annoying.
media. The media can make people, they just put enough attention on the person, and then people connect connect with them, and they just start supporting them. The people that support the thing, whatever the thing is.
The
And if
latest thing.
Beto becomes the thing, if the media decides that he's the thing and they just start doing it, he's gonna have a bunch of people going, "Yeah, man, yeah," and they're never gonna know what you're talking about, and it's crazy because, if because he should rightly be hated. Like, who the fuck would vote for that guy for dog catcher, like, or
A lot,
anything, you know?
a lot of people now. I see it like on Twitter all the time, and I see like these crazy people, even people that are from here in Texas, which baffles me. Like, I understand people that come from the cities. Like, if you're from Austin or you're from like Houston or like even like in Dallas, because Dallas is like really heavily Democrat, like in Dallas proper. But like you get to the outskirts, like the other little small towns around there, like Plano and like Garland, all these other cities that are like red and stuff. Like you get a little pushback, whatever, here and there, but it doesn't surprise me like in the least when I see people online, like on Twitter especially, and you see like, oh, vote Beto for Texas, and like they're from like Lubbock or what. It's just like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Like it's completely baffling, and like even if you didn't know anything about him, the only thing you would ever have to know was that Soros pumped a shit ton of money into this latest charge, paid for his campaigns and advertising stuff. That would be the only thing that you would
That's
ever
it.
have to know.
That's automatic disqualification.
Like
That's
even
it.
if you had no idea where he came from or who he was, like that would just be the ultimate one. Like,
Yeah.
oh, he got funding from Soros. Like, well,
Yeah.
like it baffles the mind. Like it's crazy. I don't know. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens. I mean,
And if you see, World Economic Forum, young global leader. That's an automatic disqualification as well. You just say no.
I
We can't
freaking
have that.
freaking Rhino out of Houston. I forgot his name. Freaking Eye Patch McCain. What's his name again?
Oh, Dan Crenshaw.
Yeah, that moron too. He was on the list, like, so like I don't know. That dude's disappointing. When he first started running, I was like, yeah, man, this dude, he can be something, something. And he was talking real big, and then all of a sudden, like, big letdown. So that's another one, and that sucks a lot because that dude was like really. He was looking good to do some things, but nah, he just shit the bed, and that dude's out of it too. So I don't know. It's weird, but
He was getting into it with my buddy Alex Stein.
no, I saw that. Yeah, yeah. That's why I got that from Eye Patch McCain because it's so true, man. He's like the biggest like rhino I've ever seen in my life. He's exactly like freaking McCain, and it's crazy. And he
Yeah,
defends it.
man. Listen, these people, these dudes that want to start wars everywhere, like you have no obligation to be nice to them.
Oh
You
yeah,
know what I mean? They deserve whatever you want to scream at them, you can scream at them because they're talking about normalizing wars, man. Like you know what that means when you start the process of a war in a new theater where like think of all the stuff that has to happen like logistically all the things that get put in all that money all that anxiety all these people that go over there and get killed and then kill other people all that shit and these guys like Dan Crenshaw and McCain back when he was alive these guys were always pushing for that. The John Bolton now, he's always pushing for that. And I fucking hate those guys,
yeah,
because that is just the worst thing you can do is go out there and intentionally try to start wars. What a waste. What a waste of energy to go do that. It just makes me sick to and look, this is part of the reason why I hate the media so much is because like they normalize this by allowing lunatics like John Bolton to come on whenever the fuck they want and talk about when are we going to nuke Iran? And you're like, dude, you're out of your mind. All you want to he's never seen a war that he didn't want your kids to go die in. He doesn't give a shit, but he wants war all the time. And to all those people that supported Trump, like he brought that lunatic in.
yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah,
why? Was Satan unavailable?
yeah.
Jesus.
It's wild, man. I understand it. It's I think we fail to like see to kind of separate when it comes to like picking sides, and when people are always like, oh, my side, this and that, blah blah blah. Like I get why it happens. I wouldn't consider myself a Republican, but I approved a lot of the policies that were happening at the time. I don't agree with a lot of the bullshit that was going on. It's not what I look at, and there's a lot of shit that was really bad about when Trump was in there. I hate the fact that he came out with this vaccine and all that bullshit. But like,
Right.
there's a lot of stuff, obviously. But
But compared to what we have
are we
now,
are we taking care of Americans? Is what I want to know.
yeah.
Like veterans hold a special place in my heart. Like I always try to help out as much as I can on my own. Homeless people here on the streets, all of that $80 billion that we sent to Ukraine, let's fucking help our own people out first.
Yeah.
Obviously, like we're when the whole thing when the freaking baby formula was short, that was a big thing as well. Like I don't understand why it's so bad that we want to take care of our own first. I get the world, like the rest of the world is a shitty place in a lot of places, and everybody always complains about the US, man, but I've been around the world a couple times, a lot of different countries. Some are great, like nice places, and I've also been to like hell on earth in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Like I guarantee you, like it's great to get to go out to like other countries and get like a world view and like freaking perspective of outside of the US. A lot of times that helps,
Yeah.
but it also helps you to realize that where we come from is a lot better than the rest of the world in many ways. But
Yeah.
like some of the shit that we do, it's like I can't even defend it most of the time to people outside of the country, and they're just like, "Oh, well, your country, blah 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 blah." I'm just like, "Yeah, like it's true, But you still take our fucking foreign aid, right? So let's
Right,
let's
exactly.
let's let's stop. Like let's be real. And
Yeah.
fucking McCain
I
was
it
one of those assholes, and now this fucker Crenshaw. But good old McCain, he claimed to be pro-life, and then he goes and dies. So I don't know.
Yeah, nobody nobody cares for old John McCain. Yeah, I just don't appreciate these guys thinking that it's not a big deal to,
Yeah.
you know, to try to kickstart a war. Like, crazy,
Of all
insane
people,
I
of all
ideas.
people, of all people, Crenshaw should know. McCain should know. Crenshaw specifically, the dude was a Navy SEAL, lost his eye in war, all that shit. He should know more than anybody. But the dude just fucking takes money for it, and he doesn't care. Like he should know what people like in his position go through as far as like families that suffer for losing people. Even when you're deployed for 9, 10 months at a time, your family's alone. Just all kinds of shit that goes on like in military life. He's the one person that should know better. But there he is, fucking sucking the teat and sending people off, and just like, it's all right, Like he made it back alive, so he doesn't care. But like he has no problem, like you said, sending other people out there. But I don't know, man. It's wild. It's wild, and it's only gonna get worse. We're only halfway through, so we'll see what happens in the midterms first. I'm
Yeah.
obviously here in Texas next month with the election, so I would have. I didn't feel like we were gonna flip here in Texas. I haven't felt like that until recently. Like now, I'm not so sure. Like the number of people I see online that have just bought the whole fucking Francis Ulrich thing. And I
Right.
like as much as I see it like online, everybody's like vote fucking Beto for Texas and blah, blah. Like I see so much of it now. Like I recently started to be worried about it. Like until recently, like the last few months, like it's really hit. And it's like, I don't. I mean, Abbott isn't perfect, and he's done a lot of crazy shit as well. But like lately, he's really come on and like helped out a lot. But it's
Yeah.
gonna be a wild ride these next, I guess, 2 months, and then seeing what happens in 2024. But I don't know. I'm just gonna hang on, see what happens.
I mean, and what can we do? We're just gonna be commentators,
It's gonna be wild.
broadcasting from the insanity of it all.
Yeah, yeah, man. But I mean, so like as we, I guess, wind down here. Any plans for like a new book? What do you got going on here?
I do have plans for. I mean, I have an idea for a new book. I want to. I'll probably start sometime in the next. I don't know, maybe next summer.
Yeah,
But in the meantime, I'm just putting out, just working on macroaggressions and getting that out to as big of an audience as possible. It's now on band.video, which has been like amazing.
nice.
And Berwick just put it on vigilante.tv. So we've got a channel there. And then Odyssey and Rockfin has been going crazy lately.
Yep.
So grateful for them, for those places. And then, of course, audio format everywhere. And you can follow me on Twitter at macroaggressions. And the website is the octopusofglobalcontrol.com.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll obviously have everybody linked down below as well to all the shows and social media, so everybody can go ahead and jump on that. The books have been great. I actually just picked up um, Hippocrazy because I hadn't read it yet, but I picked it
Oh,
up
yeah.
last month, I think, is when I picked it up. So I'm like halfway through it. I get distracted and stuff, and obviously out of the country and all kind of stuff. So that was wild, but
Well,
um,
enjoy. I got to suggest a book recommendation for you after you get done with my book. Go get the two Whitney Webb books, One Nation Under Blackmail. I just finished. I'm almost finished with my second book, and it's fucking. It is like an encyclopedia of crime. It
oof,
is there are just so many connections and so many names and so many dirty people in our government and in foreign governments, and like how the organized crime and the government just like blended together and how they were like working together. It's so good. It's such a, and there's two books too.
right.
It's not just Jeffrey Epstein, though obviously she's best known for her Jeffrey Epstein stuff, but she sent me a digital copy of it before it came out, and I was reading it, and I was like, "Dang!" I mean, it's so hard to read because there's just so much information. There's just no fast way to read it, and so I recommend that for people that are interested in getting into some like hardcore criminality.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, I'll definitely take a look. I actually heard of it before. I just didn't think much of it at the time, but now that you're saying that, so we definitely got to put that on the
Yeah,
radar now.
yeah. You do because it shows it really shows like the Jewish mafia and the connections to the FBI and the CIA and to Epstein's network and to the Seagram family and to Roy Cohn and to Trump and to all, I mean, it's like you start to, everything is connected and everything is documented and you go, oh my God. What you find is that like Epstein wasn't just this predator. He was also like deeply involved in intelligence and he became part of this network that has always kind of existed.
Yeah,
And so she goes back to like the 30s and 20s writing about like that, these groups. It's just really well done. And so anyway, obviously I'm trying to I would love for people to buy my books,
absolutely.
and I hope they will. But Whitney Webb's books are like they're just really good.
Right. Yeah, we'll definitely have that on the radar then. If anybody wants to pick that up, the holidays are coming real soon, so those would be some good books for people. But obviously, we're here to make sure that everybody picks up Charlie's books first. So
I
let's go ahead
appreciate it.
and do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go ahead and
Yeah,
do that first.
Amazon, they're available in paperback in Amazon, The Octopus of Global Control, The Controlled Demolition of the American Empire with Jeff Berwick, and Hypocrisy, Surviving in a World of Cultural Double Standards. Those are all available on Amazon in paperback, or you can go to my website, theoctopusofglobalcontrol.com, and you can get them in digital format from me. So whatever you want, I got
Nice.
it.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, everybody go ahead and pick those up. Charlie, man, I appreciate your time again. As always, it's always fun when
Thanks,
you come
Paul.
on. Really appreciate it. Yeah, so everybody else, if you guys are catching us, like I mentioned on YouTube, man, and you aren't already a subscriber, for the most part, most of you are. So like half of you do. So that's really good. But let's get everybody up there. Please consider hitting that subscribe button for us as well as that like button. That'll really help us out. Also, don't forget to turn on that bell icon, man, so you guys don't miss an episode in the future, whether we go live or we pull out our high strangest episodes. As always, if you guys want to catch us on the go, you can find us on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, as well as iHeartRadio and Amazon Music at Truth Defender Podcast. Like I mentioned before, if you guys really enjoy what we do here, please consider sharing the show with a friend, family member, or colleague. But be careful with those people at work because that should get you in trouble. And always, if you guys have any questions for myself or our guests or topic recommendations, you can shoot us an email at thetruthDefender1776 at gmail.com. I really appreciate everybody stopping in. Everybody stay safe out there, stay blessed, and most of all, stay frosty.
Perfect.